Tarzan and Frozen. The theory that Tarzan is the brother of Anna and Elsa. In 2013, Frozen co-director Chris Buck confirmed in an interview with MTV News that he personally believes the shipwreck at the beginning of Frozen and the treehouse in Tarzan are connected. Buck explained that in his headcanon, the king and queen of Arendelle didn't die in the storm. Instead, they survived, washed ashore in the jungle, built a treehouse, had a baby boy, and were eventually killed by Saber the leopard. That baby grew up to become Tarzan. Buck even suggested the ship from Frozen is the same wrecked vessel that Tarzan and Jane explore. The timeline works surprisingly well. Frozen takes place around 1840, and Tarzan is set in the late 1800s, giving about 60 years for a child to grow up. However, Frozen 2 complicated this theory by revealing the ship was headed to Atohalan in the north, not Africa. Still, Buck's original statement remains, making this one of the few fan theories actually acknowledged by a Disney director. Andy's mom. The theory that Andy's mom is Emily, the original owner of Jessie. In Toy Story 2, we see Jessie's heartbreaking backstory in the When She Loved Me sequence. Her owner, Emily, gradually outgrows her during the 1960s, eventually donating Jessie to charity. The theory gained traction when fans noticed Andy's mom wears a red and white cowboy hat identical to Jessie's hat in old photographs and home videos. The timeline aligns perfectly. If Emily was around 10 years old in the mid-60s when she gave up Jessie, she'd be in her mid-30s by 1995 when the first Toy Story takes place, matching Andy's mom's apparent age. Emily's hat and shirt design in the flashback match the hat Andy wears throughout the first film. Even more compelling, Andy's mom shows no interest in Andy's toys, except when she holds Jessie in Toy Story 2, briefly examining her with what could be recognition. The animators at Pixar have never confirmed or denied this theory, but they've acknowledged being aware of it. The evidence is circumstantial but surprisingly consistent, making this one of the most plausible connections in the Pixar universe. Parents' voyage. The confirmed reason Anna and Elsa's parents went to sea. For years, fans speculated about why the king and queen left Arendelle, with theories ranging from seeking a cure for Elsa's powers to simple diplomatic missions. In 2019, Frozen 2 writer and director Jennifer Lee confirmed the truth during the film's press tour. The king and queen were sailing to Atohalan, the magical river in the north, specifically to find answers about Elsa's ice powers. Lee stated in multiple interviews that the parents felt guilty about Elsa's isolation and believed Atohalan held the key to understanding and possibly controlling her abilities. This was later shown explicitly in Frozen 2 when Elsa discovers her parents' shipwreck and reads her mother's final words in the ice memories. The parents were trying to help Elsa, not abandon their daughters. Their voyage was an act of parental desperation, not royal duty. This revelation reframes the entire tragedy of Frozen, transforming their death from random misfortune into a sacrifice driven by love and guilt. The confirmation came directly from the filmmakers, making this one of the rare fan theories that turned out to be completely accurate. Ursula's royalty. The theory that Ursula is King Triton's sister and was banished from Atlantica. Several pieces of evidence support this connection. In The Little Mermaid, Ursula lives in the remains of what appears to be a palace, complete with a throne room and regal architecture. She possesses a crown in her lair and wears nautilus shell earrings similar to Triton's crown design. Most tellingly, she knows intimate details about the palace, Triton's schedule, and how to manipulate Atlantica's politics. Production notes from the original 1989 film reveal that early drafts explicitly made Ursula Triton's sister. Animator Rob Minkoff confirmed in later interviews that Ursula was designed with regal elements to suggest royal heritage. The original screenplay described her as Triton's sister who was banished for practicing dark magic. This backstory was cut from the final film to streamline the plot, but visual hints remained. Ursula calls herself a waste of space in Poor Unfortunate Souls, suggesting she was once someone important who fell from grace. When she takes Triton's crown and trident at the film's climax, she seems intimately familiar with their power, transforming immediately into a giant. This wasn't lucky improvisation, but rather someone reclaiming what she believed was rightfully hers. The evidence is strong enough that many consider this confirmed, even though it never made the theatrical cut. Pleasure Island. The explicitly horrifying reality of Pleasure Island in Pinocchio. This isn't a theory, but rather what the 1940 film actually shows. The coachman runs a child trafficking operation, luring stupid little boys to an island where they're encouraged to drink, smoke, gamble, and vandalize. The children then transform permanently into donkeys and are sold into slave labor in salt mines and circuses. The film makes clear these boys are never turned back. Lampwick's transformation scene is genuinely terrifying, with him screaming for his mother as his hands become hooves and he loses the ability to speak. The coachman's line, "They never come back as boys," confirms these children are gone forever. Pinocchio only escapes because his transformation was incomplete, but dozens of other children weren't as fortunate. The coachman faces no consequences. He's never caught, never punished, and is shown gleefully counting money from selling the donkey children. This is human trafficking, enslavement, and irreversible transformation presented in a children's film. Parents who brought their kids in 1940 left theaters disturbed. Modern viewers are often shocked Disney included something this dark. The sequence has no comic relief, no rescue, and no happy ending for the victims. It remains one of the most genuinely disturbing sequences Disney ever produced, made worse by the fact that it's not subtext or theory, but literally what happens on screen. Quick note, if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, I create videos like this regularly. Subscribing would really mean a lot. Mother Gothel. The textual evidence that Mother Gothel is a psychological abuser in Tangled. The film doesn't hide this. It explicitly depicts gaslighting, isolation, and narcissistic manipulation tactics. Gothel tells Rapunzel, "Mother knows best," while describing her as sloppy, underdressed, immature, clumsy, and insisting the outside world will eat her up alive. This is classic emotional abuse, designed to destroy self-esteem and create dependency. Gothel isolates Rapunzel completely, ensuring she has no friends, no outside perspectives, and no ability to verify Gothel's claims. When Rapunzel expresses desire to see the lanterns, Gothel doesn't forbid it outright, but instead makes Rapunzel feel guilty and selfish for wanting it. After Rapunzel defies her, Gothel doesn't punish her immediately, but instead brings Flynn's satchel to prove that Rapunzel was right to never trust anyone. This is manipulation, not discipline. Gothel never uses Rapunzel's actual name, only calling her Flower or Dear, reducing her to a resource rather than treating her as a person. When the spell breaks at the end, Gothel's immediate concern is her appearance, not Rapunzel's safety. The film was praised by psychologists for its accurate portrayal of narcissistic abuse. Tangled presents Gothel not as a traditional villain, but as a realistic abuser, making her far more disturbing than typical Disney antagonists. Scar's devastation. The ecological collapse under Scar's reign, explained through real science. The Lion King shows the Pridelands transformed from lush savanna to barren wasteland during Scar's rule, and actual ecology explains exactly why this happened. Scar allowed the hyena population to explode without natural checks, creating massive overhunting that depleted prey populations. Lions and hyenas normally occupy different ecological niches, but Scar combined them, doubling the predator density. The herbivore populations crashed, leading to overgrazing by the surviving animals desperately seeking food. Without herbivores maintaining the grasslands through grazing patterns, the vegetation died. The film shows rotting carcasses and scattered bones, evidence of unsustainable hunting practices. Scar's statement, "You eat when I tell you to eat," suggests he controlled food distribution rather than allowing natural hunting, creating artificial scarcity and competition. The drought Rafiki mentions might not be coincidental. Overgrazed land loses moisture retention, potentially affecting local weather patterns. When Simba returns, rain falls immediately, but this isn't magic. The timing suggests seasonal rains that would have come regardless, but the ecosystem was too damaged to recover without intervention. Scar's reign lasted approximately 3 to 4 years, based on Simba's aging, enough time for complete environmental collapse. The film presents a surprisingly accurate depiction of how poor resource management and ecological imbalance can devastate an entire ecosystem. Coral's death. The theory about Marlin's unreliable narration in Finding Nemo. The film opens with a barracuda attack that kills Marlin's wife Coral and all but one of their eggs. Nemo survives, but has a small, underdeveloped lucky fin. However, fans have noted inconsistencies suggesting Marlin might be an unreliable narrator. The barracuda attack happens largely off-screen, with Marlin knocked unconscious. When he wakes, Coral and the eggs are gone, except for Nemo's egg, which is lying outside the anemone on exposed rock. Barracudas don't typically eat clownfish eggs. They hunt larger fish. The attack seems unmotivated and unusual. More disturbing is Nemo's injury. A damaged egg shouldn't produce a fish with a small fin. It should produce a dead or severely deformed fish. Some theorists suggest Marlin accidentally damaged the egg himself during panic, then suppressed the memory and blamed the barracuda. This would explain his extreme overprotectiveness and Nemo's resentment. Marlin's helicopter parenting and constant catastrophizing suggest trauma beyond simple loss. He treats Nemo as impossibly fragile, perhaps out of guilt rather than just fear. fear. The film never shows other characters confirming Marlin's version of events. We only have his word, and he's demonstrably anxious and catastrophizing throughout the entire film. While Pixar has never confirmed this interpretation, the evidence for Marlin as an unreliable narrator is surprisingly substantial, adding a much darker layer to Finding Nemo's opening tragedy. Elsa's curse. The evidence that Elsa's powers were caused or amplified by Grandpappy's magic in Frozen. When young Anna is injured, the trolls heal her, but also erase all her memories of Elsa's magic. Grandpappy warns, fear will be her enemy, and tells Elsa to control her powers. However, some fans and psychologists argue the troll intervention made everything worse. Before seeing the trolls, Elsa's powers seemed manageable. The sisters played happily, and the only incident was an accident. After the trolls, Elsa's parents lock her away, and her powers become increasingly unstable and tied to her emotions. The film asks, born with it or cursed, but never answers definitively. Grandpappy's glowing magical intervention could have inadvertently cursed Elsa while trying to help. The memory wipe ensured Anna couldn't help Elsa process her trauma or understand her struggles. By erasing Anna's memories, the trolls guaranteed Elsa would face her fears alone, isolating her from the one person who loved her unconditionally. Elsa's loss of control correlates directly with her isolation and fear, both caused by the trolls' advice. In Frozen 2, it's revealed Elsa's powers come from her mother's sacrifice and the magic of the enchanted forest, but this doesn't explain why they became so dangerous. The trolls' intervention, meant to help, may have transformed a manageable gift into a dangerous curse through fear and isolation. Hunchback's darkness. The disturbing realities in The Hunchback of Notre Dame that are textually explicit. This 1996 film is arguably Disney's darkest, containing themes most studios wouldn't touch in children's media. Judge Claude Frollo is sexually obsessed with Esmeralda, a young Romani woman. He sings Hellfire, where he explicitly blames Esmeralda for his lust and vows to possess her or burn her alive. This is predatory obsession presented without sugar-coating. Frollo attempts genocide against the Romani people, burning houses and planning mass execution. The film opens with Frollo killing Quasimodo's mother on the steps of Notre Dame, then attempting to drown the baby before the archdeacon intervenes. Frollo keeps Quasimodo imprisoned in the bell tower for 20 years, psychologically torturing him with the song "You Are Deformed" and convincing him the world will reject him. The film depicts religious corruption, racial persecution, abuse, attempted infanticide, and sexual obsession. The Hellfire sequence shows Frollo surrounded by red-robed figures and fire while he sings about his desire for Esmeralda, creating genuinely disturbing imagery. Esmeralda is nearly burned at the stake, and Frollo falls to his death from Notre Dame. The film earned a G rating, despite containing content that would typically warrant PG or higher. Critics noted its mature themes, and many parents left theaters uncomfortable. This isn't subtle subtext. The Hunchback of Notre Dame explicitly deals with darkness most Disney films carefully avoid. Bambi's mother. The confirmed brutal death of Bambi's mother and why it traumatized generations. In the 1942 film, Bambi and his mother are grazing in a meadow when hunters arrive. His mother urges him to run, and a gunshot rings out. Bambi escapes to the thicket and calls for his mother, but she never appears. His father, the Great Prince, arrives and states simply, "Your mother can't be with you anymore." The scene is devastating in its simplicity. Disney deliberately chose not to show the death, making it more impactful. Children understand exactly what happened without seeing it. The timing was particularly brutal. Released during World War II, when many children's fathers were at war, and death was very present in American life. Walt Disney insisted on including the scene despite concerns about traumatizing children. He believed showing loss and teaching children about mortality was important. The animation choices amplify the tragedy. The meadow scene is bright and peaceful, creating false security before the gunshot. Bambi's confusion when calling for his mother captures genuine childhood incomprehension of death. His father's stoic delivery of the news reflects 1940s masculinity, but also shows how information without comfort leaves children processing trauma alone. Bambi's mother became cultural shorthand for childhood trauma through media. Studies have examined its psychological impact on viewers. The scene works precisely because it's honest. Death is sudden, unfair, and permanent, and Bambi must continue without her. Coco's death. The literal mechanics of the final death in Coco, explained by the film's mythology. Pixar's 2017 film presents a clear two-death system. The first death is physical, when someone's body dies and they cross to the land of the dead. The second death is final, occurring when no one in the land of the living remembers you. When the last person who knew you dies or forgets you, you fade away completely, ceasing to exist even as a spirit. This is presented explicitly through Chicharon, who disappears mid-conversation with Hector when his last remaining friend dies. Hector faces this final death because his only living connection is Coco, his elderly daughter, whose memory is failing. When someone is forgotten, they don't go somewhere else. They simply stop existing. There's no afterlife beyond the afterlife. This is complete annihilation, the true end of existence. The film treats this as horrifying. Miguel's desperate attempt to make Coco remember her father drives the climax because the stakes are Hector's complete erasure from reality. The movie suggests memory is the only true immortality. Physical death is inevitable, but being forgotten is the real tragedy. Families maintain ofrendas with photographs specifically to preserve memory and prevent the final death. The system is surprisingly philosophical, addressing questions about consciousness, identity, and what it means to truly die. Coco presents death not as a single event, but as a process that can take generations, with memory as the final thread connecting us to existence. Clayton's fate. What actually happened to Clayton in Tarzan's climax? In the 1999 film, Clayton becomes entangled in jungle vines while fighting Tarzan. As he falls, a vine wraps around his neck. He frantically cuts through vines with his machete, but in his panic, he cuts the vine holding him up. He falls, the vine around his neck goes taut, and he hangs. The film doesn't show his body, but it shows his shadow against a lightning flash. The shadow clearly depicts a hanging body swinging from a noose. Clayton hanged himself with the jungle vine through his own panicked actions. This is an on-screen death by hanging in a Disney film. The lightning flash shadow is intentional, ensuring attentive viewers understand exactly what happened while maintaining plausible deniability for younger children. Director Kevin Lima confirmed in interviews that Clayton's death was designed to be unambiguous for older viewers. Unlike many Disney villain deaths, where they fall off cliffs or into ambiguous darkness, Clayton's fate is shown through silhouette. The vine noose imagery is explicit. Some argue this is Disney's darkest on-screen death because it's both self-inflicted and shown clearly enough to be undeniable. The film earned a G rating despite this, though modern standards might rate it differently. Clayton's death works thematically. He spent the film trying to control and exploit the jungle, and the jungle ultimately killed him through his own actions. It's poetic, but also genuinely disturbing in a film aimed at children. If you found this interesting, subscribe so you never miss new content. Thanks for watching.